Welcome to Your Retirement Lifesaver with Elise Roberts. This show's mission is to share financial knowledge that brings you peace and abundance for your financial future. Let today's planning remove tomorrow's uncertainty. Let's turn it over to our host, Elise Roberts.
Hey everyone, welcome to our next episode of Your Retirement Lifesaver. And we've been talking a lot over the last few weeks. One of the things last week is I wanted you to get to know me a little bit. So I kind of told you how I got in the business and what I love about what I do. So what I'm going to share next is there are 3 phases of your retirement. There's just 3 phases, and I'm going to show you with a visual. So we're going to think about your retirement as a mountain. And if you're climbing a mountain, that's going to be your accumulation phase as you're building your worth, your retirement money. And when you get to the top of the mountain, there's a cutout. If you'll notice, I've cut out a section. That's the peak of the mountain. So that is the next phase. That is your preservation stage. So coming up the mountain is your accumulation. And then during this phase at the peak, at the very top of the incline and the descend is the preservation stage. This is the most important stage. That is the most dangerous phase. So we want to make sure that you're paying attention to that. Then that 3rd phase of your retirement is your distribution. Now, you can spend many, many years, and I'm sure you have, building wealth using an advisor who's considered an accumulation advisor. There's 100,000 of them in every city. So I spent 20 years of my career actually doing that, building your wealth, being that accumulation advisor. The one thing I found as things changed over the years and the more I learned is I wanted to be more of the distribution advisor because of what happens. And I want to be able to be there to make sure that nothing happens to your plan. So going up the mountain, you've spent years with an advisor who's built your wealth. And I'll promise you this from experience, they will never tell you to make a change in the peak of the mountain. That's just not, they always say these same things. Remember the talking points that you hear all the time. You're in it for the long haul. You know, market goes up and down. Don't change anything. Just stay the course. Be very careful because when it comes to actually retiring, you have to make changes, but you have to make them before something happens. Or if you end up hitting in that peak, if you'll take a look at the peak, right there on the left side, you've accumulated wealth, and now you're thinking of retiring in the next 5 to 10 years. Now it's the danger zone. Now you have to start preserving what you have. So you have to make some changes right there so that when you hit that flag, which is your retirement date, that you don't have to move that date. Because if a 2008 happens to hit during the peak before your retirement, you might have to move the date out. You might just have to live on less. It depends, I don't want either one of those things to happen for you. You don't live all your life, work all your life, and be disciplined to live like a pauper when you stop working and not have enough money. So you will need at least as much as you're living on now, and maybe a little more because you want to enjoy your life. So that preservation stage is very critical prior to retirement. Then once you retire, if you're out here and you're listening and you're already retired, that first 5 to 10 years after you retire is just as crucial as the first 5 to 10 before you retire. So let's say that a 2008 hit after you retired in the early stages at the peak, and you start tumbling down that mountain. Well, now we don't have a paycheck to make that money up. And you might hit that flag at the bottom before run out of money before you hit that actual flag at the bottom, which is your end of life. So we don't want you to have to put off your retirement date or run out of money in retirement. And the way we can protect you from doing that are some of the things that I want to share with you so you'll be very aware. And then the very next episode, we'll actually talk about how to protect it. So what I want to show you next is a screen. And there's these 2 brothers. And I'm just going to quickly tell you that they're both going to retire with the same amount of money. And this is going to explain the mountain. They're both going to take out the same amount of money every year. They're going to put in 500,000 and they're going to actually live on and distribute it back to themselves $30,000 a year. So they're going to put in 500. They're going to spend a decade taking 30,000 a year out. So they're going to put in 500, take out 300. What happens at the end of the decades? So let's start with the first brother. And by the way, they're investing their money exactly the same. The only difference is when they retired. So Steve's going to retire first. He's going to retire at the beginning of a bull market. Remember the 90s? It was amazing. You couldn't lose money even if you burned it. It came back. It was crazy. It was just one of those times that it was complete bull market for a decade. So when he retired, take a look, he put in 500. He's taken $30,000 a year out. He only had one negative year and it wasn't much. It was in the very first year, but he didn't really tumble down. He just had a little bit of a loss. And then every year after that was positive. So he put in 500. He took out 300. At the end of the decade, he has over $1 million. He's done an amazing job. He just hit the right time. He was in the beginning of a bull market. Unfortunately for his brother, all circumstances will be the same, except he's going to retire in the beginning of 2000. So check out the next screen. This screen shows you Bill. Bill also put in 500, also takes out 300, but look what happened. The very first 3 years, he starts tumbling down that mountain. There is no making that up. He lost too much too fast. And even though he still had some decent years, when 2008 hit, it took him down all the way. He has put in 500, after a decade has $161,000. The difference in the two brothers is only the peak of the mountain, not about the average rate of return, but it was the sequence. It was when they retired. So if you think about if you're retiring in the next few years, or if you've already retired, maybe you're planning it in the next 5 to 10, think about where we are today in the market. Where do you think we are now? We are in the beginning. If we haven't already started it, we will be in the beginning of the bear market, like what happened to Bill. So if you are retiring or considering it, now's the time to reposition some of that money that's sitting at risk so that you don't lose all of it again or half of it again or whatever that number is when you do retire. Or I'm sorry, when the market does go back. So when you retire, the money is there. And the next week, what we're going to talk about is how we're going to prevent that. What are we going to do different in the peak of the mountain? And it's basically following the rule of 100. But we're going to get into it a little deeper than we have in the past. So I look forward to sharing with you exactly how we're going to protect you during the peak of the mountain, which is your preservation stage. There's a time we have to preserve some of the money. And of course, you're going to leave some at risk, but we're going to make sure you're not devastated by doing it and following the rule of 100. Thanks so much for allowing me to share. I love sharing these episodes and letting you take it step by step so you can see how we do what we do and how we can protect you during these crucial times so that you don't worry about what happens in the market. Some of your money will still be there, but not all of it. So thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
This show is sponsored by Secure Today Financial. Thank you for being our guest. Never hesitate to reach out to our host, Elise Roberts. She considers every relationship important and thoroughly loves to help people gain peace in their finances. Elise's contact information is below, and we'll see you on the next episode.